Voters in several parishes dodge showers to hit the polls this election day. And a popular local festival expands again this year, and it's just one of many fest options this weekend.
Live from the French Quarter, this is Eyewitness News at 6.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Shauna Sanford. Heavy rains expected this weekend have led to a flash flood watch through Monday, and we've had several reports of hail as well. Let's start in the forecast center with Alexandra Cranford, who is tracking that line of storm. Jefferson Parish detectives are looking into a deadly fight between a man and his teenage grandson. It happened last night at a home in the 1000 block of DeMarco Drive in Marrero. According to investigators, the 14-year-old got into an argument with his grandfather, 52-year-old Kenny Armstrong. Officials say the argument turned physical and Armstrong began swinging. The teen allegedly struck Armstrong, who fell and hit his head on the ground. He died at the scene. An autopsy is scheduled to determine the cause of death. So far, no charges have been filed. We have new information in the investigation of a Broadmoor break-in. Police have released new sketches of the suspect. They say he's known as Patrick. He's wanted for a home invasion in the 8200 block of Green Street and is accused of trying to strangle the woman who lives there. If you recognize this man, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers at 822-1111. Officials in St. Bernard Parish say foul play is not suspected in the death of an inmate at the parish prison. Sheriff James Pullman tells our partners at the New Orleans Advocate that 19-year-old Namali Henry was in jail following an arrest connected to a domestic dispute. She was found unresponsive in her cell on Tuesday morning, and officials could not revive her. Officials are awaiting toxicology results to figure out how she died. Today's rainy forecast is expected to have an impact on elections in several local parishes. Polls are open until 8 o'clock tonight. St. Tammany voters will cast their ballot for a new coroner. The winner will fill the remainder of former coroner Peter Galvin's term following his conviction on corruption charges. In Kenner, incumbent Mayor Mike Yenny is running for a second term, but he faces two challengers, independent candidate Al Morella and Republican candidate Walter Benetti. There is also a race for police chief in Harahan with 4 candidates in that contest. Look for results tonight on WWLTV.com once the polls close at 8 p.m. and, of course, on Eyewitness News at 10. If you are a fan of festivals, there's a wide variety to choose from this weekend. And this year, the Ferret Street Festival expanded by adding a 5th stage for live music. People could check out items from dozens of vendors selling things like jewelry and art. There's also plenty of food from the area's best chefs and live music from as many as 30 local artists. Now, there's still time to check out the fest. The last bands of the day will play until around 7 o'clock. And Tulane University's Crawfest is bigger than ever this year. Thousands of people pack the quad for lots of live music and crawfish. Dozens of local vendors set up for the fest, and organizers expect to go through every last tail of the 18,000 pounds of crawfish they boiled up. The funk band Lettuce is on stage now. Crawfest wraps up at 7 tonight as well. The local chapter of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MAD, is finally back and holding its first fundraiser. This morning's Walk Like MAD 5K was held in LaSalle Park in Metairie. Participants brought photos of victims of survivors of drunk driving crashes for a special memorial. The group set a goal of $7,500 for today's event, but managed to exceed that goal, raising just over $9,000 to stop drunk driving. The bill to prevent those potentially devastating flood insurance hikes has been signed into law, but homeowners still have questions. Coming up, Michael Hecht with G&O Inc. joins us to talk about the next steps in keeping flood insurance affordable. And professional wrestling brought its main event to New Orleans this weekend. Hear from the WWE icon Hulk Hogan about WrestleMania in New Orleans coming up. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Louisiana, the state we're in. I'm Shauna Sanford. Charlie Wyndham is off tonight. While topping the headlines, parents threatening to keep their children from taking the Common Core test this March are causing the state's top school board to worry. Members of Bessie say that in addition to parents opting their kids out of the test, superintendents are confused about how to handle students who don't take it. A special meeting could be called to resolve the issue. Louisiana could lose out on millions from the 2010 Gulf oil spill pollution fines. The state stood to receive $1 billion, but that will be cut by at least $240 million, according to reports by the Lens. That's because a federal judge has ruled that the spill was smaller than the government estimated. The Department of Health and Hospitals heard testimony from abortion rights advocates on Thursday who opposed laws recently passed by the legislature that affect the licensing and operation of abortion clinics. Now, this protest that you see here happened before the session. Advocates say the 20 pages of regulations vastly exceed the department's authority. They delivered thousands of letters and petitions to DHH. The department says the rules are to ensure the safety of women and children. They could go into effect by March. Strike while the iron's hot. That's the attitude of some leaders around the state now that New Orleans has passed a smoking ban in bars and casinos. Now, the Crescent City passed a local ordinance on January 24th, and it may be gaining traction. There is big interest from both Baton Rouge and Lafayette to go smoke-free. Critics claim the ban would hurt business revenues. The state banned smoking in restaurants in 2007. Tobacco-free living tells the advocate that over the years, restaurants have not been significantly impaired.
Shauna Sanford of Louisiana Public Television has our report.
Here in the capital city of Baton Rouge, Catholic Charities Diocese has mobilized to help a few thousand children who crossed the southwestern U.S. border and ended up in Louisiana.
I think that the children and their families are just caught in a power struggle between Republicans and Democrats competing over the Hispanic vote. It makes me want to do something about it.
David Aguillard is the executive director of the diocese. Is it a moral obligation?
We have a particular gospel mission to reach out based on our Christian beliefs, our Christian values, and we want to do that within the confines of the law.
In response, the diocese has established the Louisiana Esperanza Project.
Unlike other court systems and legal processes in our country, when a person's life is at stake, like in criminal court, there's a right to a public defender. For these children, there is a right to access the system, but there is not a right of being supplied legal representation.
The program, funded to the tune of about $1 million per year, provides attorneys and other legal assistance to the children and their families for free or at a reduced cost. But it's very slow going. There aren't enough attorneys to represent all of the children whose cases have to be heard in federal immigration court. And that court has been without a judge for months now. So the only time cases can be heard is when an immigration judge comes to Louisiana from another state. But some prominent politicians don't believe the children should be in Louisiana in the first place. Louisiana's Republican Governor Bobby Jindal has blasted the Obama administration for the recent influx, calling it a failure to secure the U.S. border. Like Jindal, some lawmakers also believe that the children should be sent back to their home countries.
We have our own problems to deal with here with poverty and these kinds of issues. It's incumbent on those governments to take care of their citizens.
Our country has recognized and has passed laws to protect children from Central America who flee here because of the violence and because of the situations in their home countries.
In keeping with its gospel mission, the diocese says it will keep working to resolve the children's cases. If it's fall, that means football and, you guessed it, politics. The two share a long history. This political cartoon is from 1889, at the time of President Harrison. It says, "What can I do?" when both parties insist on kicking. The two sports are so intertwined that political football is defined in Sapphire's political dictionary. It means to thrust a social, national security, or otherwise ostensibly non-political matter into partisan politics. And that brings us to this political season, filled with millions of dollars, a barrage of attack ads and debates, or some might say fumbling punting and trying to score points. The end is finally in sight. We're almost near the finish line.
Yes.
We are
yes.
almost there.
Yes.
How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling great, and my staff is even feeling better.
Secretary of State Tom Shedler sums up the early voting results in 2 words.
Very confusing. But Shauna, we came very close to meeting the November objective. We were 221,000 versus 245,000. We averaged 44,000 a day versus 31,000 for the November election.
And who voted? Do you know? Can you tell us?
It seemed to be fairly even between Democrats and Republicans. Republicans maybe a little bit of an edge, as I recall, on some of the numbers, but not drastically.
There was some worry that because the balance of power has already been decided in Washington, D.C., that perhaps voter enthusiasm might be deflated.
Certainly no evidence of that through early voting. So we're encouraged and hoping that we have a great turnout Saturday, and so we're urging folks to get out there and finish the election cycle.
I think actually Republicans smell blood in the water. They see this is the opportunity to have a Republican clean sweep at the top. And this would be truly historic. I mean, if Mary Landrieu loses, this would be the first time, probably since Reconstruction, that there will be no Democrat who holds a statewide office in the state of Louisiana.
Dr. Albert Samuels is a political science professor at Southern University.
If the early voting totals are any indication, Democrats have a lot of reasons to be concerned. Landrieu's campaign has this, they call this 30-30 strategy. They need African Americans to be about 30% of the overall total, and they hope to get 30% of the white vote. They see that as a formula for winning. And I guess if either of those two don't happen, it could be a long night on December the 6th.
Like in many good games, there can often be controversy. Outside of the issues raised by the candidates in the final debate of the U.S. Senate race,
he will be fighting subpoenas because he padded his payroll. He took money without accounting for it.
The question for Senator Landrieu, when she was taking taxpayer-paid for charter flights to campaign events, who benefited there?
a group of state lawmakers took issue with the fact that this time around there were only 5 early voting days instead of 7 as stipulated by law. 2 days were lost because of the Thanksgiving holiday. The Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus filed a lawsuit against Tom Shedler, saying the reduction in days infringed on voters' rights. They wanted them added back, but a district judge ruled against the extension. So those who didn't cast their votes early have one more chance on Saturday, December 6th.
Louisiana, we have a lot of experience with Saturday elections. This is not a new thing for us. In fact, it's one of the things that makes our way of doing elections different from most states.
The 6th also happens to be a big game day for the Southern University Jaguars, who'll be playing in Houston, Texas. And wherever they go, their fans are sure to follow. So what sort of impact could that have on voter turnout?
It's somewhat the fact that the people who are going to vote, and the people who are not going to vote, it's not going to matter whether the Jags are playing or the Tigers are playing or if nobody's playing. They're not going to vote. That
is an issue, and LSU won't be going out to Atlanta, but that would have been also the same thing. So these things occur at this time of year, and then you always got to worry about people being focused on the holiday season, which we all should be, and family. But hopefully we're in that kind of that open hold period where we pass Thanksgiving now, and maybe it's a little bit early with Christmas. But that's always a concern.
Nonetheless, this is an important election, and Secretary Shedler has a little incentive for those who still have to go out and vote.
And one way maybe we can get people to exercise their right tomorrow is to say, look, if you do that, no more robocalls, no more mail pieces into your house, and no more TV and radio ads.
It'll be
and
over.
If you don't, well, we're going to pipe some stuff in, but just teasing.